Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. If we can start with Al-Fatiha, we'll just say it and ask Allah for openings and blessings. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. It's so good to be here with you, and I'm excited for everyone's participation. Hopefully this will not be like a one-sided conversation today. And I wanted to talk about this essay because I found it interesting. I don't have an architecture background. I'm a lawyer. So is anyone here an architect? Designer. Okay. So we're going to need your insight, inshallah. No one else in that area? All right, so we're all in this together. We're going to need your insight, Auntie Cheryl. I think it's interesting. The reason I found it interesting is that we interact with our surroundings all the time. We interact with the buildings around us all the time, and I didn't stop to think a lot about how it's impacting me before this. So hoping we can explore that topic a little bit and then jump off from there, inshallah, into maybe like what are some of the other structures, maybe non-physical, that impact the way that we live our lives and see the world around us. Bismillah. So what are some thoughts that come to mind when you see this picture? Or feelings that it evokes? And I'm very comfortable with silence, so you can think about it. You said cold, okay? Daunting. Yeah. I know that. Yes, and especially in California. I don't think this picture is in California, but coming from an earthquake-prone area. That's a big question. Other thoughts? Not friendly. Yeah, okay. Anything else? Competition, like what's happening inside the building, you mean?
It's kind of like a flex for
Yes. Like you add a slight thing on top just so you can beat the record of being the tallest building. I like that, okay. Other thoughts? I would hope that there are, but you really can't see any. Yeah, it just feels a little bit intimidating. Dominance. Okay. What are your thoughts when you see this picture? This building, this area? Humble. Okay. Peaceful. Yeah, it really does feel as close to heaven as we can get. Anything else? I mean, it's okay if you don't have positive feelings about this. Countryside. Poor. Okay. Rich. Wow. New Zealand. I don't know where this picture is taken, actually. Other thoughts? One of my thoughts was like, where are the neighbors? But maybe that's because my neighbors are so close to me here where I live. Okay. So I think this is a really good starting place because we see how, in both cases, the buildings really impacted the way that we interacted, the way it evoked an emotion, even though it's not a living thing. So that's where we're going to start. This is an essay. It's available on the Renovatio website. Renovatio, for those who don't know, is the journal of Zaytuna College. And there are a variety of essays and articles that you can find there. I recommend checking it out. They also have a podcast where they explore some of these issues. Some of them are just reading out essays, and then others are discussions where they'll bring a guest and they'll have an interesting discussion. There's a really good episode on Renovatio that I save and come back to. I forgot the title, but it's something about beauty. If you're interested, I can show it to you afterwards. But this essay is written by someone named Marwa As-Sabuni. I don't know her, but she's an architect. And she is, according to her bio, based in Homs, Syria. And so she's writing this from an architecture background, but I think that it has a lot of relevance for people of all backgrounds. So the big question that we'll be asking today is, how do structures shape us? So can we get a reader? This is an excerpt from the essay, just a couple sentences. Would anyone like to read? Yes, please, Afia. Thank you, Afia. I think that's the typo, so thank you for reading it correctly. So one of the things that she mentions is that industrial production brought about two separations. One was work from place. So now your work is not limited to a certain place. Essentially, it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a factory, in an office. It doesn't have to be in a specific physical location. And then the second was humans from nature, and that one I think is a little bit more self-explanatory. Obviously, when our work becomes less connected to the land, we get more disconnected from nature. And so, yeah, okay. So this is one of the basic ideas that we'll come back to. So this part is where she talks about nature. Can we get another reader? Who would like to be brave? Yes, please.
Nature became seen as not a part of the built world, but only as an accessory or a resource. This deteriorated our view of ourselves within our surroundings. We lost our attachments to the world and to others. And in consequence, that makes us feel safe and stable. And with the disappearance of those connections, we've lost the stewardship that responds to disaster before it takes hold, whether a civil conflict or a wildfire.
Thank you. So this is one of the consequences of of us being separated from nature, is that it's just seen as a resource or an accessory. It's not seen as an integral part of our lives. And slowly we start to not understand what its role is. We don't feel safe in nature, and we see that all the time, right? I'm myself see this in my own life and my interactions with nature. And then interestingly, this would take us maybe on another tangent if we discussed it, but the second part of this is that she also says we've lost the stewardship that responds to disaster. And recently, we had the fires locally, and one of the things that people were bringing up at the time is that the native communities in this land had a way to prevent fire in this area, because this is an area that's prone to fire. But we've lost that connection because we don't have that connection to nature anymore. Okay, so this is where she makes her thesis and where we'll spend some more time. So she brings up this idea of the factory, and it doesn't just refer to a physical factory. For her, it refers to a mindset that is profit-focused, that is risk-averse, and that is exclusivity-prone. And she says that it's a mindset where production is the only way to be prosperous, to have prosperity. So with this mindset, there's a high level of competition. It consumes what it's involved in. It's very expansive, and that it's exclusive. And of course, from that, the result will be growth. You will see growth from that, but you will also see unprecedented levels of social and moral apathy and of destruction. So she says the reason we see, so apathy means that we are, thank you, Ayan, that we don't, we're not interested in other people, we're not interested in the future, in consequences, we're kind of just interested in ourselves, maybe just in our own salary, and we'll go to work, come home, like I have a roof over my head and I just repeat, and then I have kids and I make sure that they have a salary and they have a roof over their head, and it just like continues to repeat. And this is because we're surrounded by daily reminders of our insignificance. We're dwarfed by endless facades, defeated by aimless roads. There are price tags for every enjoyment, and we're separated from each other and from the simple joys of our world. So we can break these down a little bit. So some of the feelings that you all brought up when we looked at the big skyscraper, right, were things related to this. Like you feel dwarfed by it, you feel maybe intimidated by it. There's a lot of dominance, a lot of competition you mentioned. So those are the things, the types of feelings that we absorb on a regular basis until it starts to impact how we see the world. And then she says that the fact that there's just these like faces of buildings makes us feel really insignificant. There's roads and you can't see the end to it, so it feels like what is the purpose of life? Like why am I even doing this? The roads that these roads and these buildings symbolize this idea that there's not much to live for. And that we get separated from each other, which is a really big thing, that the architecture around us sometimes separates us from our neighbors, from our friends, from our family. So I have a question for you all, because it's something that struck me. So she's talking here about reminders of our insignificance, that this huge building dwarfs us and makes us feel really small. And it's seen here as a negative thing. But, and maybe you would agree with this, that when I'm in nature, when I can see the stars, when I can see like the vastness of the ocean, that also makes me feel small. But that's usually a good thing. What do you think might be the difference? Can you say more?
Well, we want to be reminded of Allah's greatness. We don't want to be reminded of people's, oppression of us.
Yeah. So I will just repeat it in case anyone didn't hear. We want to be reminded of Allah's greatness, not of people's oppression against us. And I think that's the big thing. Like, it's not, the idea of feeling insignificant is not necessarily a bad thing if it's in the context of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that gives us safety. You can feel safe in losing yourself to God. But in feeling insignificant in this context of the factory, of this man-made, profit-driven society where the only way to be prosperous and successful is to produce, that makes us feel small in a way that returns back to another person, not to God's greatness. So what is the solution? What's next? She compares this. She doesn't really call it something in the article, but I just decided to call it the communal good. If you have a better word for it, I would love to hear. She says that exclusivity leads to apathy. She quotes Sheikh al-Sha'rawi, who's a sheikh in Egypt who passed away in modern time. And I'm really curious what the Arabic for this was, because I think it would illustrate the point a little bit more, and I don't know if I'll ever know. But she says that exclusivity leads to apathy. Exclusivity meaning there's only one way to prosper, there's only one way to make profit, like this mindset that there's the diversity is discouraged. And the opposite of that is an ancient wisdom of communal good. So that's where we encourage a variety of successes, where we recognize our mutual need for one another. So if you were in this week's Tuesday class with Sheikh Muslima, where we were doing tafsir of Surah Al-A'la, and in the ayah, this is just a reflection that came from it. It's not necessarily the tafsir, but that there are different things that we're created so differently, and that Allah facilitated us for certain things that maybe other people are like. Something comes easy to me that maybe doesn't come easy to someone else, and the opposite. And so that tells us that that reminds us that we need each other. We have a mutual need for one another, and we don't live in silos. We don't live alone. And so the more we can lean into that, the more we can fight against this idea of moral and social apathy of like, what is the point of life? Of, I'm just going to worry about myself and make sure that I go to work and come home. And like, there must be more to life than that. So we'll end the part of her article and start the part of our discussion with this closing thought from the essay. So our last reader, who can volunteer to read this? Yes, thank you.
Profitable
Thank you. So this is where she ends, and it's, I think, a jumping off point for something else, because it's a reminder that we must reconnect those two things, so work and place, and humans and nature. And if we reconnect them, then we'll remember that we belong to this, we belong to our families, we belong to our communities, like we must build community, instead of like getting lost in what she calls the factory of the profitable, the fruitful, the worthwhile. So that got me thinking about what are some of the non-physical structures that might exist in our life that are having the same impact that these buildings maybe are having on our lives. So I wanted to ask you all, if you, I don't know why I'm in this view actually. At the end, I'm going to change it. Do you have, what comes to mind about like just non-physical structures that might be impacting the way we interact with our surroundings? Our phones, social media, yeah. Like, what about them? What are the structured parts of that? Yeah, the way we communicate is limited to. Yeah, yeah. So it separates us. Okay. Other thoughts? Other structures that might exist? There's I think the social media can make us feel insignificant in the same way that like an intimidating building can. And also this idea of like, there's a loss of control of our time, because we end up like doom scrolling. You're like scrolling, you meant to do it for 5 minutes, and then you're like half an hour later, you're still here. So we lose our responsibilities in that sense. Like we don't feel responsible for every minute of our day the way we're supposed to. And it can lead to isolation also. So I think there's two aspects. One is awareness of these internal structures. So just like whenever we are met with them, we just remind ourselves that this is a structure. Life doesn't have to be this way. So awareness, I think, is step one. So I wanted to, these are open-ended questions, and they could be something that we like maybe go into the week thinking about, or we answer today. But the first question is, what structures in our mindset might lead to apathy? And I think we touched on it just now with the examples, but specifically in our mindset, in the way that we see the world, the way that we see our responsibilities to the world, what things might lead us to be apathetic? Sorry, say it again. When, okay, commuting. That's an interesting one, because maybe at the same time every day you and all these people are on the same road, but you never interact. Sure, yes. Commuting and being in the same, surrounded by so many people, but never, what was the word that you used? Not connecting with those people. Others? So are there ways that we can maybe rearrange these structures to help us grow? Like political party? Yes. Okay.
People try to be as different as much as they can, just in order to be part of that party.
Okay.
So that's like a mindset that causes people to go away from each other.
That is for sure a mindset. And then sometimes people, for the sake of the party, you're like so connected to the idea that you're not willing to have a debate, you're not willing to grow because of the political party. Okay, I like that. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Political parties and, can you say it again?
Only louder.
identifying with a party for the sake of the party. No, thank you for, I'm sure others couldn't hear as well. Thank you. So I think the key to this is that we can build community. We just need to rearrange those structures a little bit. The same way that we can build community despite our big buildings, we just need to rearrange a little bit. The same goes for non-physical structures. So I think one is returning the value that we should have to our time. Reminding ourselves that our time is really valuable, it's our biggest asset, and that we're held responsible for the way that we spend our time. That can prevent us from some of the issues that we mentioned with like social media and our phones and over communication on a phone instead of in real life. If we value our time a little bit more, we might stop to think, like, how can I build community with people outside of the virtual space? And then I also want to emphasize that I think like in this, a lot of these issues are issues of modernity, right? And so like we might be tempted to say like, oh, it was better before modernity, it was better before, and like everything is corrupted now. And I think it's important to just be a little bit nuanced in that, in looking back at history, because modernity is not necessarily evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have made us born in any other time, but we are born in this time. And so there is something that we're meant to contribute in this time. So it's not a matter necessarily that like, it doesn't mean that modernity is the enemy, but that we must be aware of the way that it's impacting our interactions and our community so that we can build better community. And then second, I think is important for the Muslim community is seeking knowledge. And I think as a community, we're pretty, I guess we could say we're pretty aware of like the importance of seeking knowledge, and mashallah, many of us are very highly educated, and we value knowledge. But I think the thing that maybe we sometimes forget about, or we don't know how to access, is sacred knowledge and like knowledge of our faith, and getting a deeper sense of what it is. And I think one of the ways that we can confront these structures, build better communities, is to gain that knowledge and seek ways to get closer to Allah through seeking knowledge about like the basics of our fiqh and our theology and our spirituality. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily like aiming to make a whole lifestyle change. It doesn't necessarily mean like we're all gonna become shuyukh. Again, we don't want this exclusivity of like there's only one way to be successful. But I think that there is a lot of benefit in each of us as adults, outside of like what we learned as children, seeking knowledge and aligning our beliefs and making sure that we are like just properly educated about our faith. So I think that's one way to confront these structures. The Majlis seminary is a great way to do that if you're looking for for a way. But really, like there are so many ways. It's not the only way. And then lastly, I think reminding ourselves to connect to the collective. And as Muslims, we have a built-in way to do that because we have a concept of the ummah. We are not alone. Like the ummah is bigger than just us and our families, so that it encourages us to look beyond it, to look for ways that we can benefit from one another, and resist, I think, some of the apathy that comes from just like the rat race of this world. So I wanted to close, and maybe this is a bit of a leap, but I wanted to close with this scene. Does anyone know what movie this is from? It's from the same producer. Yeah, it's called, Salman Mukhtar. It's called Lion of the Desert. So it's about the Libyan resistance against the Italians, who were colonizing their land and pillaging So these two characters, the one at the bottom is Omar Mukhtar, who is this is based on a true story. This was a true character, and then a true personality. And then in the top scene, it's someone who's also Libyan, and he's also Muslim, and he's also from the community. And the conversation they're having in this scene is the Italians are here in Libya. They are pillaging their resources. They are killing their citizens. They're colonizing their land. And they're offering that if you just don't resist, you'll have a chance to have like some normalcy in life, right? Like you could do this whole thing of like go to work and come home. And so this character, I can't remember his name, but the character on the top is saying, he's trying to tell Omar Mukhtar, like, stop resisting, because you will have a chance at peace for your people. And he says, this may be the last chance you have for seeking an honorable peace. And then Omar Mukhtar responds, and he says, I will not be corrupted by that man's peace. That man is Mussolini, like the Italians. And so I think that this is a good example of rearranging some structures in thinking on like first definitions on what is peace. And he says in this clip, you would, if we can find it on YouTube later, but he says that I think like all of these people who are also suffering have not asked me to stop resisting because they believe in this cause and they understand that this is not peace to just simply like stop resisting. And so that made me think that I think the true spirituality, true inner peace, challenges structures of power. That is what naturally happens, and that we are not all going to be resistance fighters, maybe, but we should find ways in our lives that we can rearrange some of these structures and some of these like assumed ways of thinking, so that we can challenge structures of power, build more community, come closer together, come closer to the collective of the ummah. Because the question we should ask is, who benefits when we see ourselves as private, insular, unconcerned with other people? And in this case, that is a source of a lot of the apathy that we might see, because we're thinking, I am my own self. It's just me, my family. I'm not concerned with the rest of the community. But in this case, like the question of that is, who is benefiting from that? Because it's probably not us individually. And I think that's it, but I would love to hear all of your thoughts. And if this brought up other feelings, if this maybe you think it's like a big leap to go from the physical structures to the non-physical structures, anything that comes to mind, now is the time to share. But thank you so much, barakallahu feekum. And let's like see if there's any questions, and then if not, then we'll close. Or thoughts, or if you like the movie The Lion of the Desert. It's The Message, if you've heard of The Message, so many people like learn their seerah from The Message, is by the same producer or director or something. Yeah, did you have a thought? Mm-hmm.
Individuals. So that's in terms of separating people or not having that camaraderie. I think we live in a society which just tries to group people into the smallest boxes.
That is a structure that we can confront, and if we can get past it, we can build better community. I agree. So to summarize, I don't think I'm going to say this as well as you did, but that there are separations that people are naturally sometimes separated by class or by different separations or indicators, and we don't often interact with one another. I like that. Yeah.
I think everything you said was really interesting. But I think it's important to get down to sort of the atomic value of what drives the key driver for all of this is, in my opinion. I think it's really how you position your value system, right? Because like I know you started off with design, for instance. Design often is when form follows function, and if our function is we seek value or through individuality, for instance, that becomes more and more the atomic
Yeah.
The more you make yourself available to the community, and that you actually genuinely want that, I think then what ends up happening is the world around you changes. That you develop it differently.
I really appreciate that. And I think also that the value of individuality that you mentioned, like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it needs to be balanced with the communal. And I think maybe that's where we're lacking and we get too far into the individuality. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up and bringing us back to how we can individually make a difference. Thank you. Yes, Auntie Cheryl.
I completely agree with everybody you're saying is that, form follows function, but I
Yeah.
think we have to go back to the basics and think about what is our intention. Almost everything we do should be based on our intention.
Yeah.
So I'm not very intellectual when it comes to these kind of things, but maybe somebody can expound on that a little bit more. But what's the intention of our structure? What's the intention of our gathering? Why are we here?
Yeah, I really love that. That's the place we should have started. Intention is key. Yeah, and especially for us as Muslims from our tradition, like that is where we begin everything. That is at the heart of everything. So yes, our intention and inshallah with good intentions we can build better communities.
Give a better example of, what happens when you have good intentions and what happens when you don't. And I think that's an important factor.
Thank you.
I think an invisible structure that we often don't think about is time,
Mm-hmm.
and how we're expected to follow certain things at certain times. I'm talking about in a day and in our lives too, and how like the society we live in here, there's a certain expectation of how you deal with time and how much time you're supposed to spend on something. Whereas in Islam, we have time completely differently in different phases and different, things happen between prayers, and it's a totally different way of looking at time. So I think that's like an invisible structure that we probably really don't. We probably feel the the pressure of it being imbalanced,
Mm-hmm.
but we probably don't really know how to solve that. Like
Mm.
how I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. So the invisible structure of time, and there are expectations from society on how much time we should spend on something, or at what point in time, like in our lives, something should happen. And maybe we don't have the answers on how to confront that, but we know that it's a structure that maybe is not always the right.
It doesn't seem balanced.
It's not balanced.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's a really good point. Yes, Hasina. Oh.
I was gonna touch on what you and Kaiser said, and then time as well. So I think with us, like what your question was, is that I think we're downloading so much information. We're in an era of like a lot of information, and we're learning a lot, mashallah, right? But going back to your intention, it's like if our intention is to actually do something about it, if it's not followed up by action, then it's pointless. So it becomes dangerous because we learn so much that if we're not doing anything about it, then you're actually going to be held accountable. So I don't know if that, yeah, if that answers your question. And then
Yeah.
with time, I think what happens is like, we time travel in our thoughts. We're time traveling to the past, we're time traveling to the future, and that doesn't allow us to be present. And if you're not, Allah is in the present. So if we're not in the present, then those structures of time, hold us back. So like always worrying about, grieving the past or worrying about the future, that's literally as Muslims what we're not supposed to do. So I think the structures of time is very, very limiting because it's a man-made construct.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and being the present, don't get lost in your thoughts,
Yeah.
the structures of thoughts and
Yeah. The first point you made reminded me of a quote that I can't remember, but it's it's saying that the this idea of long hopes, like tul amal, that when we have intentions without actual actual like willpower behind it or an actual intent to follow through, that it's just a long hope. It's not something that's ever going to happen. Yeah, and then on the second point, that time, being in the present moment is the best way to combat these questions of like, what am I supposed to do in this time, or did I do the right thing in the past, or what will I do in the future? The worries of the future. Like the answer to that is to live in the present. Thank you, Hasina. Did you have
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but to think of my current experience that I just had. I just got back from being in the UAE for like 6 months, and I think a lot of Muslims can relate where we've been frustrated and needed, to kind of see what it would be like to go to a Muslim country. So, I would have to say that part of your presentation made me realize why are we this way just to begin with, and I think that the government sort of sets us up this way so that they can control the masses. All we can think about is I gotta buy a house, I gotta pay off my student loans, I have to put my kids in school. Like we're so worried about similar to really everything that everybody's talking about. It's really difficult to be able to then rise, come to self-realization, right? Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I think that when, in contrast, when we were in the UAE, like there's a very, very healthy work-life balance there. And so again, I think it's because of the way the government sets it up, right? So there, here it's like you have to make like a 2-week appointment to see somebody. Like, oh, let me check my calendar. I'll see you next Thursday, like at
Yeah.
this time. Over there, it's like someone's calling. I'm downstairs, and like let's do this. And life just felt different. And I told my husband when we come back, the things that we experience or that we're positive, we should put a lot of effort into it, which is similar to what you're saying. You have to kind of break down those barriers, and part of it is being aware and then seeking it out. And it's difficult because of the way the setup is. Though we've been set up to be this way, and so we have to be aware of the fact that we've been set up, and then we need to go out of our way to, anyways. And so it's just interesting because we just had that experience. It's very different living here versus living there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Any final? Oh yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead. You didn't have a turn. I was just thinking of what Ilhan Omar said. It's all about the Benjamin.
I think Jay-Z said that.
I mean, gathering that quotes Ilhan Omar can't go wrong, right?
That has something to do with your intention.
Yes.
Did she talk about in the article kind of which should we prioritize between the structures, like the internal or the external structures? Because sometimes, like, or I guess I don't know if you touched on, like, because I think like having being able to handle this and build the internal structures, sometimes like you need those external structures as well to be positive. So I'm kind of curious if that came up.
She doesn't talk a lot about the internal structures in the article. She does say that our spirituality is influenced by our surroundings, like physically. But I made the leap to the internal. But it's a good question. Like the external structures do impact our internal, and there's like a symbiotic relationship, I think. I think, are we ready to close? Is this a Hanan, do you know? Okay. Yeah.
Just remember, if you have a big structure, that big tall structure, you need to have an elevator. Just, think of these kind of things.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's some symbolism there too. Yeah. Yeah. Have a plan to get up there. Oh yeah.
I have a few thoughts, like about a couple things, but one of them is kind of the importance of thinking of like community and how there's things like there's other, so like individual obligations. Now,
Yes.
It's about, it kind of goes down to like, what are your priorities? I think a lot of people have kind of mentioned that. And so you think about the community and like what your influence is and what you're going to do in the community rather than just worrying about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? That plays into your nefs a bit as well. Um, and I also want to touch a bit about the article and how it's kind of, it has shined on like what architecture does to a person, what the place does, and you talk about that. And you'll see like in certain office spaces, like it's not comfortable. People want to work from home instead. But like the Medjlis, like specifically here, you see like it's built in a certain way that is like very comfortable.
Mm.
You know, and it's supposed to, it's very inviting, especially like this atmosphere. Like it's, you come here, it's very nice. Like it feels very homey too. So I think that that's also kind of part of the focus of like how are you building these structures, like these actual physical structures?
Yeah.
How does it look? And then you know it does kind of influence things. Like people here, like I've had very good experiences here. People are very nice, very open. So
Alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah. So I think that there is kind of an influence with that. That's probably something that we can take is I guess maybe from actual physical structures is like how are they actually built? How do we how do we actually operate within them? You know, and are we, if it's a workspace, you know, are we there for work or what is our what is our actual intention?
Mm.
It's not like yes, work can just look like I'm here to just go make money, these types of things, and then go back home. But you want to think about like with your job, with your intention, like you're there to please Allah, right? And so when you think about pleasing Allah, you think about other things. You think about asking your coworker how their day was. You go to their office space. You know, I was at a job that my boss would come to every single person's office. There's a few offices. Like it wasn't like nothing. It was like a good amount of office spaces. He'd come in and then he would ask like, how are you doing and everything
Wow.
when they would come in. And that created like a really connected culture like with the boss.
Of course.
It was over maybe 60 people. So I think that was something that you know that it is kind of that you know that blend of the physical aspect, like actually being there, and then that does influence your internal health.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aspects.
Thank you for sharing that. So I don't know if everyone heard, but the first thing was that we have this concept of fard ain and fard kifaya, which is like a built-in way of caring about the community and thinking about both the self and the community. And then the second was that there are some buildings that are like office buildings where people don't want to work. And then there are other buildings that are inviting and encourage community. And the example you gave was the Medjlis, which is a nice thing to hear. And I think that is the intention. And the intention is that it's a place where people can feel comfortable and welcome. Thank you. Yes, hearing other people's perspectives is an important part. Yeah. Yeah.
You were talking about, my voice is very low. I'm going to try to make it louder or you can repeat it.
Sure.
Everybody's talking about intention, and intention is really very, very important. I always remember when I learned how important intention is. The question was, what is the outcome, and what is the intention, and what is the procedure on getting to the outcome of your intention? And what percentage would you put on each one to get to the actual outcome? So if you add the intention plus the procedure, you're supposed to get the outcome. So how much does everybody think you should put in the intention to get to the outcome? And I was processing that, and I always thought, okay, this percentage in the intention and this percentage in the procedure, you get 100% on the outcome. And then I learned really that the percentage on the intention should be 100%. Now the procedure on how you're actually going to get to the outcome, it really doesn't matter, because if your intention is 100%, your outcome would be 100%. So if you all feel like this is my intention, and you follow the intention 100%, the procedure will be filled in on how to actually get to your intention, and your outcome will be 100%. You will get your intention.
And the outcome and the results were never in our control to begin with. So we leave that to Allah, and the part that we can do, the 100% of intention, is the part that we contribute. I like that. Thanks. Thank you all for participating. I hope there was some benefit, and I hope that we were able to discuss and bring to life some of these ideas. Inshallah, we can build better communities. May Allah allow us to internalize His word and His guidance so that we can confront these structures and build better community and just be of those who are successful. Ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.